With that, we go now to our next question.
Thanks very much. Thank you, candidates. My name is Joshua Knack. I'm the owner of a small business here in Kamloops and president of the Chamber of Commerce. Speaking with our membership, which is around 700 members, the primary issue that was raised was taxation. Taxes and other government-driven costs at all levels have increased expenses significantly for businesses, hindering their competitiveness, challenging our economy, and really resulting in costs that are passed along to consumers and increase the cost of living. What will you and your party do to alleviate what is essentially a tax transfer? And that question is directed to Terry, to Kathy, and to Cynthia.
Well, thank you, Joshua. In the 2015 to 2019 government, the Liberals asked the wealthiest Canadians to pay a little more and reduce taxes on the middle class. Invested in families with the Canada Child Credit, which, as I mentioned, lifted hundreds of thousands of people out of poverty, giving them money in their pocket to spend in their community for small businesses. We've lowered the small business tax rate from 11 to 9%, which is the lowest in the G7. And we've also allowed small businesses to write off investments in manufacturing equipment and other equipment, particularly as it relates to energy savings, right away rather than over the life of that equipment. That really helps businesses get a head start. So when it comes to small and medium-sized enterprises, we know that 70% of Canadians are employed in these enterprises. We want to support them, and I think our record shows that we have, and our platform certainly demonstrates that we will continue to do that.
Thank you, Terry. Next, Kathy McLeod, Conservative Party.
Certainly, we're hearing taxes from all sources are becoming an increasing challenge. So whether it's provincial, whether it's federal, it is a problem. We are going to repeal the Trudeau tax increases on small business investments. We're going to exempt spouses from tax increases on small business dividends, and of course make it easier to navigate the tax system. I do want to note in 2017 there was a sort of a vast array of proposals that came in the middle of the wildfires. There was pushback from across the country in terms of the absolute punitive changes. They did back off a number of those changes, but they moved forward with someone like passive investment. They say, well, that should not have, preferred tax rate. Passive investment is where you keep the money for your future expansion. It's where you keep the money for rainy days. It's where, small business owners don't have pension plans. They don't have health plans. So I think it was unreasonable. Thank you.
Okay, now Cynthia Egley of the NDP.
Small businesses are, I found out, the fuel that drive job creation in communities, and the NDP has been fighting and will continue to fight for lower small business taxes to reduce unfair costs that credit card corporations they pay to credit card corporations, and also will make it easier to pass on your small business to your loved ones. The new NDP will get rid of tax loopholes for the richest corporations. They will ensure ultra-rich corporations pay their fair share, and will get tough on tax evasion. And if fair pharmacare comes in, if we get elected, then small businesses will also have to pay up to $600 less per employee for drugs.
Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, with that, we'll go to the next question. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Martin. I'm a decorated veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I served my country for over 10 years. In my career in the Canadian military, I was deployed in multiple areas in the world. Some of the deployments were under NATO, UN, and Canadian interdiction. I was deployed in some dangerous area like Cyprus in the first Gulf War in the 90s. Never did I say to my government, I'm not ready to go. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous about this. Some of those deployments were last minute, like a couple of days before being deployed. My question is this: why is it when my country called upon us to go abroad, we have no hesitation in answering the call? But when we call in our country to help us, we can't get the help required and what we need. The average waiting time when asking for help for the Veterans Affairs is between 12 and 18 months. Some of us cannot wait that long. Some of my friends committed suicide because they could not get the help required. What will you do if elected for those of us that's given blood, tears, body parts, and mental illness to reduce the waiting time so we can get the help we desperately need and deserve?
Okay.
I would like to ask,
Sorry, pardon me, who would you like to answer that one first? Who would you like to direct that to?
Mr. Lake, and then the four major parties, please.
Well, Daniel, first of all, thank you very much for your service. My dad is a veteran, and you know, November 11th is a time when, as councillor, mayor, and MLA, it's always been very special for me to recognize people who have given so that we have the freedoms we have today. When we assumed power, or the Liberals assumed power in 2015, we reopened 9 Veteran Affairs offices across Canada to increase access for veterans. $135 million into Veterans Affairs, and then another $150 million over 5 years for a Survivors Fund as well. But we recognize that there's still a backlog that we are still continuing to work on, and we need to double our efforts. And so you have my commitment that we will make sure that we absolutely do that and make sure services are available to you.
Before Kathy goes, in fact, I have 2 questions. Another question, one is,
I'm
today in the global news, it was reported that the federal government just cut reimbursement for military health care and hospitals, and they have to pay, and they're on the hook for millions of dollars.
That's correct.
Explain that, please.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll go Kathy, and Terry, if we can, we'll come back.
So first of all, thank you also for the service, and we do have to get this right. It's unacceptable in terms of veterans that are waiting for services. We have committed to a covenant between Canadians veterans and Canada's those that serve. We have committed to getting rid of that backlog within 24 months, to have it completely wiped out. I was as shocked as you were when we heard the news in terms of an arbitrary secret cutback in terms of the payments to hospitals for military services. It was unacceptable. And I think, you know, we do need to do better, absolutely, for veterans.
Cindy, the MVP.
Thank you again for your service. I don't unfortunately have much of an answer for you, other than if you leave, your name was my campaign manager, I will try and get you a better answer. My husband's dad was a veteran, my dad was a veteran, and I thank you for your service, and I too find it shocking. So I'm not going to sit up here and tell you 15 days into my campaign that I have an absolute answer for you, but I do believe that again, federal NDP is in it for people, and they're in it to help everyone who built this country. And I do think that if you have fair pharmacare, and fair pharmacare, that's huge, to actually start with head-to-toe healthcare.
You know what we'll do is we'll just keep on, we should have alternated and gone the other way, but you know what, maybe what we'll do is we'll go through same order. So Ian Curry, if you want to answer next.
Yeah, so like everyone, I'm grateful for your service to our country, and I am keenly aware that veterans issues are not much talked about in this country until we get to an election cycle. And so there are solutions in focusing our healthcare dollars and our veteran dollars on mental health issues and dealing with serious issues that have been neglected for far too long. But the one solution to not making the same mistakes that have been made over the years and letting these important issues lapse during the election period is to vote for something different this time.
Thank you. The People's Party of Canada and Ken Finlayson next.
First of all, there's an old quote from a pretty good book says that there is no greater love than a man who will lay down his life for his brother. So thank you. Now let me read you from our platform here. The People's Party will enshrine in legislation the country's obligations to our veterans in a military covenant between the government and those who served in the armed forces. Furthermore, we will reinstate the fair disability pension as previously provided by the Pension Act. The pension will apply retroactively to 2006, and lump sum payments received since then will be treated as advance payments. We're on your side.
Thank you. And Peter Carrick from the Communist Party.
As with every member in our society, your needs should be taken care of. In particular, when you're willing to give your life for the cause, whichever cause that the Canadian government calls upon you to deliver. It's frankly unjustified not to provide the funding that you need to ensure all your services are met. And I mean that not just for veterans, which is specific to your question, but we have the wealth in this country to take care of everyone. We don't need to keep on underfunding communities and having people live in desperation and food insecurity, housing insecurity, everything that veterans included have to suffer through. But in particular, the counseling services, all the extra services related to the particular occupational diseases that veterans suffer through must be fully funded.
Now, Kira Cheeseborough, you're the only one that's not weighed in on this one yet, so we'll go to Kira Cheeseborough of the Animal Protection Party.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your service. My partner is actually a veteran as well, and this issue is something that really needs to be talked about. If we're thinking about mental health services, veterans should have that prioritized access and immediate access so that they're able to work through the trauma that they incur from service. When we're looking at the Veteran Affairs offices, we can make mobile offices so that it's easier for veterans to access who may have incurred a physical disability or a disability that makes it difficult for them to leave home to receive the services that they need. Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question there on the right.
Hi, my name is Cole. I'm a student here at TRU. My question regards post-secondary education, and it's to whomever wants to take it on. What changes, if any, to the student financial aid system would you support in order to improve public access to post-secondary education? And following that, would you support the reinvestment of RESPs and tuition tax credits into a comprehensive need-based grants program?
We're going to start with, because it was addressed to all, we'll start with Ken and we'll work our way right. So Ken Finlayson of the People's Party of Canada.
I have to admit I'm not that familiar with the funding structure for education, but I think student housing is a big issue, and we would do something in that area. But frankly, I'm not familiar with the things you've asked.
Ian Curry, Green Party.
Thank you. The Green Party considers higher education to be a right as opposed to a privilege. And so we have a fully funded, fully costed platform that is proposing that we eliminate tuition entirely, abolish tuition for higher education, universities, trade schools, etc., and that we forgive the federal portion of the student debt going forward.
Cynthia Edwards of the NDP.
Like the Greens, the NDP also feel that it should not be a privilege. It should be a right to have education. We also think that instead of loans, the students should have grants. And thank you.
Kathy McLeod now, the Conservative Party of Canada.
So there has been a number of changes that have been made over the last number of years in consecutive governments to make it easier both within the grant system and the loan system. We actually support the RESP program also, and we actually are going to enhance it because it is something that, parents, when their children are young, there's an opportunity for them to make life a little bit easier if they have small contributions on a regular basis. So, I think we need a number of different ways that we support post-secondary education, but I certainly wouldn't support turning the RESP system into a complete grant system.
Kira Cheeseborough next of the Animal Protection Party.
So the Animal Protection Party is wishing to have access to post-secondary free. We do believe that a society that is highly educated has a better quality of life. We're able to make better choices for the future. We're also wanting to forgive student loan debts. And when it comes to RESPs, I think it's something that needs to be, I don't have the knowledge whether or not this would be the best practice, but I 100% would support it if this is going to be beneficial for students and young people wanting to pursue a higher level of education.
Terry Lake next of the Liberal Party.
Well, thank you. I firmly believe that post-secondary education is a shared investment on the part of taxpayers and the part of students. We know that students who obtain a post-secondary education earn more over their lifetime, so it is a great investment. But cost should not be a barrier to make that investment on the part of students. So we've lowered the interest rate on student loans. We've increased the number of grants available to students. And if re-elected, we'll make a couple of significant differences. We will give you 2 years to start paying your loans back instead of 6 months at the moment, and increase up to $35,000 your income before you have to start paying it back. And then if you have a child, you can put that in abeyance as well. So the goal is to get you out into the workplace, up on your feet and running as fast as possible, earning an income, taking advantage of that great education that we all invested in. Thank you.
Peter Carrick of the Kamloops Party.
Our party supports the abolition of post-secondary tuition, and we support debt forgiveness right across the board. Young people shouldn't go to university and have to decide whether or not they want to graduate with $40,000 in debt or $100,000 in debt and then crush their dreams because one debt is better than the other and they're weighing off whether or not they can afford to have kids when they have all this debt on their back. Just imagine how many people go to university. You should be able to go to university based on your talent, not on your ability to get money or potentially count on inheritance to one day pay off your student debt. I mean, all these things play a factor when you go into. I have 2 university degrees, and that all played a factor. What can I potentially get out of this, and how much risk am I going to take by taking on all this debt? I happen to do it without debt, but
Thank you,
I'd be
sir.
fortunate.
Go upside down. Go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Igor Kostsin. I'm the Managing Director of Western Canada Theatre here in Kamloops. My question is for all of the candidates today. How does your party value arts, culture, and heritage? And how do you see the arts, culture, and heritage as a priority within this riding and in this community?
We're going to start from the other side this time. So Peter, that means that you are up first this time.
Could I get the question just again?
How do you value arts, culture, and heritage, including in this riding?
Well, I place great value on it. I mean, that's a part of what makes life worth living is to have arts and culture. But I want to see it from the grassroots up instead of building mega projects like a performing arts center, which is designed to bring in talent from out of town and put our money into that talent, and then that talent takes our money out of our local community and takes it with it back to their producers and whoever they go off to. Instead, I'd rather see funding for grassroots community projects in all forms of art, and have a grant system. You know, instead of putting $50 million into a big building, put $50 million into an endowment fund, which would fund all sorts of kids who need access to the arts, building their skill set and becoming professionals one day.
Thank you, Peter. Terry Lake next.
Thank you. Well, it's extremely important, Evan. It is the heart and soul of a community, and I think you can do both, actually. I think you can invest in young people, like the Festival of the Arts or Kamloops Interior Summer School of Music, and you can also have a performing arts center, which I am absolutely committed to supporting should I be sent to Ottawa on your behalf. We have to have all of those amenities in the same size of Kamloops. We've got great sporting facilities. It's time that we had a world-class Performing Arts Center here in Kamloops. And there are innumerable benefits, not just to the arts community, but the downtown business community. And to make life truly worth living in a beautiful community like Kamloops, the Performing Arts Center makes tremendous sense to me.
So we're on to TRC's girls.
National Protection Party puts high value in arts and culture. When you think of creativity, it's a skill that could be used to find innovative solutions and futures. And when you're looking at the young people, if they're harnessing that skill, when they become leaders themselves, they're going to be able to find such creative ideas and solutions or programs in the community. And it fosters that sense of community within everybody to be able to feel like they are participating or contributing to a greater sense of purpose.
We're on Kathy McLeod.
So when I moved here in '99, I was amazed at the richness of the community here, from the Symphony to Western Canada Theatre to the Art Gallery. There is, of course, as you know, a number of programs that have been supporting throughout the years. And I've always said, if the community makes a decision, I take my marching orders from the community in terms of, there was a referendum, it failed last time. If there's another referendum and there's a decision to move forward, I'm absolutely going to work hard on your behalf to help support you as a partner in making that a reality, absolutely.
We'll go to Cynthia Higley, the NDP next.
The NDP also wholeheartedly supports the arts, and again, I also feel that as a constituent and if elected as an MP, I would take my marching orders also from the community. But I also think it has to do with education as well and the price of education. And I do want to note that if you're graduate from university and you've got $50,000 of student debt, they will hunt you to the ends of the earth to come and collect that debt. But if you're a transitional automotive conglomerate, the Conservatives will loan you billions of dollars and the Liberals will write it off for you. So again, the NDP is in it for you, and if the arts and culture is what you want, that's what I will support.
Ian Curry now of the Green Party.
Thank you. So the Green Party's fully costed platform proposes increasing funding to the Canada Arts Council and to the CBC. A vibrant arts community is an important part of the community, and I support the local Performing Arts Centre, not just as a venue for bringing in acts, but also a venue for training people here in town and providing opportunities for young people. My daughter comes every year to Kissam, and having a facility where our young people can perform and get the training in the arts that they desire is really important to me as a citizen of Kamloops. And I also think it should be important to your MP.
Thank you, Ian.
Culture and arts are vitally important to people's identity, and we need to emphasize that. It also needs to be driven by the grassroots. We don't need a bunch of elected elitists directing where the priorities should go. Some cities like Calgary recently, they had a referendum on whether or not they should hold the Olympics. So I think it's important that the priorities and the money is directed by the people that have to pick up the tab. Now, having said that though, art and culture are vitally important to who we are, and life shouldn't be all about work.
Thank you, Karen. We'll now go to the next question on the right.
Hi, my name's Diane, and this is a question for Mr. Curry. 2 or 3 times tonight you referred to your party's fully costed platform. Yet your platform has been costed twice, and in both cases marked as a fail in terms of responsible fiscal management. Okay, but specifically with regard to your climate action plan, thousands and thousands of jobs will be eliminated in a very short period of time. But all Canadians will be affected in terms of institutional investors, banks, the income by provinces, mutual fund and pension plan losses, bankrupt companies, etc.
We'll need a question.
Over and above job losses, what do you propose to do to protect Canadians from the financial meltdown that your climate action plan would inflict?
Ian Curry.
Thanks for the question, Diane. So I don't agree with the premise of the question. So we are proposing, because this is what the science says we need to do, that we move away from fossil fuel extraction. We move away from basically making the problem worse. And so we move away from fossil fuels and the oil sands. We do that in a period, but before 2030. So there's a period of transition that will be required. There are jobs that will be created absolutely in the process. So an independent, nonpartisan group of construction trade unions have estimated that the transition to a green economy between now and 2050 will create 3.3 million direct jobs in the construction industry and 17 million direct and indirect jobs in the construction industry. That's just construction. That's not the transition to renewable energy. That's not an electrical grid.
Thank you, Ian. Sorry to cut people off at some point. Terry Lake is putting down his challenge card, so Terry Lake.
Well, thank you, and this is a very important point. And you know, I got back into this life primarily because of my concern for climate change as well, Ian. And I drive an electric car. I live downtown. I try to have a very small carbon footprint. But I recognize that if you go too quickly, you will cause this economic shockwave that will, in fact, put people out of work. And when people are out of work, what do they care about? Right now, everyone cares about the environment. That's great. That gives us this momentum to actually do something about it. But when people are out of work and they're worried about putting food on the table, the environment doesn't come first anymore. We've seen this movie before. We can't lose the momentum by having a plan that is not feasible, that will take us backwards, not forwards.
Ian Curry is very enthusiastically playing his challenge card here. So Ian Curry,
Do I have to play one at a time, or can I do all?
I think you got to do one at a time.
Okay, so there you go. So it's not the Green Party that says that we have to make these large changes by 2030. It's a group of scientists called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and they have established targets, and their targets aren't "this would be nice if." Their targets are, if we do not, this will lead to catastrophic consequences. And so our plan is not to move slowly, because the science won't allow us to move slowly. And it would be really nice. It would be. I can see. It would be really nice if we could. And it would be really nice if we could placate everybody and say that we can have a slow plan that's not going to change the way people work in Canada. But that's not the truth.
The People's Party of Canada has played his challenge cards, so we'll go to Ken Finlayson with the BBC.
Contrary to the conventional narrative that the debate is over, that is absolutely not true, and I wouldn't even be here. There are a lot of scientists, reputable scientists, who claim that CO2, man-made CO2, is not the cause of climate warming. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the most preeminent scientists on the face of the earth is British Columbia's own Dr. Patrick Moore, a lifelong student of ecology, which is about the relationship of everything in the environment to everything in the environment. We also have Dr. Willie Soon, an astrophysicist who studies the relationship between the axis of the Earth and the effect of the sun. What?
Easy.
Compared to who? Stand up so everybody can see you.
All right, we're going to need you to
Don't talk
have a
about
seat,
me.
let him
Let's
finish.
not talk about me. Let's talk about, some of the mental midgets that changed the course of history. Let's talk about Galileo. If we went by consensus, we'd still think the world was flat.
Ken, I'm going to have to cut you off right there. Thank you. Bang for the buck on that question, too. We'll take the next question from this side.
Nancy Cavalier, and I think Diane was set up to lead into my question. The question, and I'm directing it to Ian, anyone else who wants to pitch what they think is valid can say as well, but for Ian, how much and how fast do we need to change things so that our world is going to be safe for our children and our grandchildren against the harm of climate change?
Thanks, Nancy. So that's an important question. So the targets of the other parties were, well, let's say the Conservatives and the Liberals were set by Stephen Harper back in the day, after he pulled Canada out of the Kyoto Protocol, which was the first climate change treaty. And so he set weak targets that the Liberals thought were too weak. 30% by 2030, 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. And since that time, since those targets were set, our emissions have risen. And they dipped slightly around the time of the financial crisis, and then have been growing since. And so we are now at the same stage we were. Last October, the International Panel on Climate Change said that we need to be 45 to 60% below 2010 levels. And so that is about 60%, which is the goal of the Green Party and the goal that science says we need. Double what the Liberals and Conservatives say.
If we're going to give everybody a crack at it, then we'll start this time from the far side there, and we'll work our way this way. So Peter Carrick.
So I agree with Mr. Curry's numbers that he's presented. What I propose differently, though, is that in the capitalist system, you can't object to the desires of the powerful and achieve significant change. Right now, we know that the oil and extractive industries have a stranglehold on our government, both in terms of donations and the revolving door that goes between those corporations and government positions. And if you really want to tackle climate change, as Naomi Klein said right in this room 2 years ago, you're going to have to get away from the power structures and the power that those big corporations wield over our politicians at every level of government.
Well, thank you. Respected real scientists like Dr. Mark Jackert and Dr. Andrew Leach have looked at all of the different plans. And, I wish, Ian, that I could agree that your plan would get us there. But they've looked at these plans and they said that they're simply not feasible. That you can't simply create an east-west grid of electricity, for instance. As much as that sounds great, it infringes upon provincial jurisdiction, it infringes on First Nations jurisdictions. It's not feasible. If we could get there that quickly and not put hundreds of thousands of people out of work, I'd be all in with you. I really, really would. But we have to do this in a way that makes sense, that brings people along and has reasonable and ambitious targets. That's why we commit to net zero by 2050, 2 billion trees over the next 10 years, and more to come if we are re-elected.
Okay. Kira Cheeseborough.
So scientists are saying that we have about 10 years to prevent irreversible damage from climate change and a global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. We also have the privilege to be leading by example for other countries in the world who, in some instances, are bigger contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. So, yes, we can't do everything overnight, but we also can't waste 5 to 10 years making this transition, because we do have a responsibility as a privileged country to lead by example for other countries as well. Looking at our economy too, one way that we can start making the shift is moving to a steady state economy. It's one that isn't extracting in excess, and it's one that's going to be using resources to the extent that our population needs and not more.
Thank you, Kira. Kathy McLeod, the Conservative Party of Canada.
So the focus of the Conservative Party is going to be technology, not taxes. We believe that the carbon tax is at a level that just hurts individuals but is not doing the job it needs to do. And to put it to a level which is anywhere estimated from 100 to 300 a ton will create enormous challenges, especially in communities like Kamloops or Clearwater, where you don't have the public transit that you have if you live in places like Vancouver. But there is enormous opportunity with technology. I was just reading the other day about more optimism around fusion. So I think focusing on technology, taking this issue globally, Canada has, again, opportunities. We have coal-fired plants opening in Asia, and we're rich in resources here, so we need to be focused globally. Emissions do not have a passport.
Cynthia Iglesias.
So this is one of the main reasons why you see me sitting up here, is because both my daughters, our daughters, really feel quite hopeless and helpless about the whole environmental thing. And they have, Canada is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world, and the Arctic alone is warming 3 times as fast. In 2018, insured losses from severe weather events across Canada totaled $1.9 billion, and Canada produces more GHG per capita than any other G20 country, and GHG means greenhouse gases. So Canada absolutely has to move away from all sources of carbon as a fuel, and our bold commitment the NDP have is that on day one of a new Democratic Party, we will end fossil fuel subsidies.
Thank you, Cynthia. Ian Curry is putting on his challenge card, and Peter Carrick is also throwing down a challenge card too. So we'll go to Ian first, and then we'll follow up with Peter. So go ahead, Ian Curry.
So, and I will, this response is directed at Terry, and just because I don't take the Conservatives' climate plan seriously. There is a rich irony in the Liberals saying that there are interprovincial difficulties with an east-west electrical grid. And that they would really like to combat climate change, but it's just too difficult. And the rich irony, of course, is that the opposition from British Columbia to something like a pipeline that cost billions of dollars more, was overridden by the federal government. And that is the one step that would actually show some seriousness about a climate crisis.
Peter Carrick, next with his challenge.
I have a feeling that if the Conservatives and Liberals weren't beholden to the oil industry, they wouldn't be so eager to drag their feet. There was an insider from the oil industry explaining this a few years ago. And the motto within the oil industry, and this was true of the tobacco industry as well, was, when we delay, we win. Because every day that you delay, the oil industry makes millions more. And so every day that we put aside is a victory for the oil industry. So there's plenty of money to go around for a just transition. We don't have to make sure that the oil industry keeps getting their money while we're making our transition out of it. That is pure political pressure that has been put on our governments to be inactive when they should be active and fast.
Ken Finlayson is putting out his challenge card. So we'll go Ken Finlayson of the People's Party.
All right, I lived through the last ice age in the 70s. I don't know, does anybody else remember it? How about the depletion in the ozone layer? We were down to hours to live, okay? It replaced itself in 150 days. I've been in New York last year and hasn't been underwater since 2015, as Al Gore predicted in 2000. The hockey stick graph was just, the data in it was fudged, or the Michael Mann, the guy that built it, failed to produce the data for the BC Supreme Court just 1 month ago. Where's the credibility with these people? We've had 40 years of fudged data, failed predictions. I guess I'm from Missouri.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, we're going to move on. We'll take a question from this side.
My name is Ashley Fleming. Hello, everyone. Two things that I think are missing from the conversation this evening. One is a level of personal accountability, and then just in the room is some diversity. I think there's a lot of voices in our community that maybe don't feel safe or don't feel welcome in this kind of environment. So my question is for everyone. I don't want to hear any party lines. I just want quick, succinct answers. Twofold. First one, what are you personally doing to reduce your carbon footprint? And second question, what are you doing to better understand and connect with the people in this riding who do not share the same cultural or socioeconomic background as you?
Okay, we have two pretty different questions there, but this time we'll go with Ken first, and then we'll work our way the other way.
Okay, the first part of your question, miss, with all due respect, what am I doing to reduce my carbon footprint? You might have guessed.
I do love your honesty.
Secondly, I'm running for political office. That's what I'm doing to connect with people like you. Thank you.
Ian Curry.
What I'm doing to reduce my carbon footprint. So I drive an electric car. Before I did, I tried to walk absolutely everywhere. I'm trying to recycle. I'm trying to reduce my energy use around the house. And then with respect to the second part is since I've started this, I have been out in the community more and not a hermit, and I am actively seeking out members of the community with diverse views and diverse opinions because I need to, in addition to meeting with people randomly just at the doors, because I think it's essential to connect with all people. And I agree with you, the white faces up here might, in fact, inevitably will discourage some people from standing up and asking those sorts of questions.
Thank you, Ian.
What am I doing personally? I have recently bought a very small mini vehicle. I have been working on reducing my carbon footprint in the house, getting rid of plastics, not buying plastics, growing a garden, and also trying solar energy on my trailer. When it comes to diversity in the community, I would do what I do in my union activism, which is to use the principle of equity versus equality and give opportunities to people who don't look like me. And also, the other thing that I'm doing is standing up here and putting my name forward because I had all the same reasons that many people have who are women to not put their name forward.
Thank you, Cynthia. Kathy McLeod.
So in spite of people that might think otherwise, conservatives are conservationists, and we have a proud history. And I actually grew up in a household that got ingrained into me. We had the first solar panel when in the 70s. My father would unscrew the light bulb if we didn't remember to turn off the light. We had the heat down, and that pattern continues. Ottawa, I love walking everywhere. So, it is not, there's no one that has the Green or any other party has a hold on this issue. We all have a hold on this issue. And in terms of, certainly over my time as a member of Parliament, I have had such rich opportunities in terms of diversity and the people throughout this riding to participate and be part of what's happening.
Thank you, Kathy. go next to Kara Cheeseborough, the Animal Protection Party.
So firstly, what I'm doing to reduce my carbon footprint, first and foremost, is eating and maintaining a vegan lifestyle. And I know some people won't necessarily agree with this, but a group of Canadian researchers did determine that having a vegan lifestyle reduces the amount of carbon dioxide that you produce per year per person by 3.76 tons. That's the second biggest thing that you can do. The first thing that they discovered was abstaining from having children, which is 58.6 tons. I myself have abstained from wanting to have children. One reason is because we have an overrepresentation of young people in foster care and in need of homes, in need of loving, capable homes. We also have to look at addressing your second question and making safe spaces for everybody. As a social work student, this is the core of my profession, and I want to have this as part of my personal life.
Thank you, Kira. Terry.
Well, Lisa and I have lived in a townhouse downtown for the last 12 years. I drive an electric car. When I don't drive it, I'm walking. Lisa takes the bus, and when I'm walking, she gets to use the car. So we try to minimize our personal footprint as much as possible. I believe you should walk the walk. As Canadians, we should be leaders. In terms of diversity, I've had the privilege of working as mayor, as MLA, with all kinds of organizations in the city. I've worked closely with TRU International to bring international students. The first Indian students were brought here on Monday night. I worked on that. Now there are hundreds of Indian students here. All of the international students have given Kamloops a different character that is so much more inclusive and cosmopolitan than it was before. I think it really adds to our community. And I was really happy to visit with the two Syrian brothers that opened a restaurant, two Syrian refugees that we welcomed here to Kamloops that are making a success right here. That is a tremendous
Thank you, Terry. And Peter Carrick of the Communist Party.
Regarding my personal CO2 footprint, I think one of the most important things we can do is reduce consumption. So we significantly cut down on unnecessary consumption. I don't travel outside of British Columbia, for example. Our family of 6 lives in a house with 4 bedrooms. So, we occupy our space. We don't have excess room or excess space. Every seat's filled in our van when we travel somewhere, unless I travel by myself for work or whatever. And as far as diversity, I am the former president of the Kamloops District Labour Council, which continues to have 13,000 members across this area. And tied into the union movement is absolutely standing up for those people who are underrepresented, racialized, oppressed, and I'm very proud of my history within the labor movement in doing such.
Thank you, Peter. With that, I know that there's a lot of you that are still waiting. Unfortunately, bad news, we've got to take our last commercial break, and then when we come back from the commercial break, we'll be getting into closing statements. For the opening statements, that means that Peter Carrick of the Communist Party of Canada is first. Come on up, Peter.
The Communist Party of Canada has a proud history of fighting for the rights, the democratic rights of working class Canadians from the 20s, 30s onwards. We were fighting for pensions before they existed. We were fighting for unemployment insurance before it existed in Canada. We were fighting for health care before it existed in Canada. But in order to influence the governments of the day, we need your political capital. We need your votes to indicate to the powers that be that our ideas have merit. And it's okay if they steal our ideas like they did for healthcare and pensions and unemployment insurance and housing and all the good things that we fought for before the right-wing parties, liberal and conservative alike, ever thought of implementing. So on October 21st, consider voting communist for the first time in your life, I'm sure, for many of you. But don't let it be the last. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Terry Lake is next with the Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out tonight. I think we had a great opportunity to have a real debate. I think the format was much better than we saw last night. So I want to thank, again, all the candidates for standing up for election. Listen, folks, I hope you will vote for Terry Lake October 21st to keep Canada headed in the right direction. We've got tremendous momentum. We are the #1 country for quality of life. We are working hard on important issues, and you have my deep commitment that I will work hard on climate change, on First Nations reconciliation, on creating jobs in the forest and other natural resource sectors here in Kamloops-Thompson-Cariboo, and on October 21st, send an experienced, effective voice to Ottawa. Vote for Terry Lake. Thank you.
All right, moving on down the line, we've got Kara Cheeseborough. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you everybody for coming out tonight and asking such great questions. I wish I was able to go a little bit more in detail about the platform that Animal Protection Party has to offer. But I do want to leave you with the thought that I am here, a young person at 25 years old. I have no former federal election experience, and I'm here because I am concerned about my future. And I have a lot more to say when it comes to industries, exploitative and extractive, that are propelling climate change forward. So I want to be here as an example for other young people to get involved in politics and to have your voice heard, because we need you to shape our future for the better. This October 21st, please talk to the young people that you know and vote for the parties and the people that they feel are going to represent their needs the most. Thank you so much.
Kathy McLeod.
So thank you, and it's certainly been my privilege and honor to represent you for the last number of years, and certainly I hope I've worked hard on your behalf, whether it's for constituents, communities, or making a real difference in Ottawa. We have a plan in terms of moving forward and to sheer affordability, and I think we have a really good plan and a vision for Canada. And I'm going to steal a line from a very famous local politician, and he says, if you like me a lot, put a big X beside my name, and if you just like me a little, just make it a little X beside Kathy McLeod on October 21st.
And Cynthia Egley of the NDP.
Hi there. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. I feel I've learned from listening to you all, and I would also, if you have questions that you would like to ask, please call the campaign office. Look, the NDP is the only party that has ever brought in any social justice programs that are awesome. Like Medicare, pensions, minimum wage, precarious work. Going into the future with the federal NDP is the only choice. The NDP's come second to the Conservatives here in this riding for the last 3 federal elections. To quote Jagmeet Singh, it takes an act of love to realize we're all in this together, and an act of courage to demand better, to dream bigger, and to fight for a more inclusive, just country. Turn Kamloops left side up on October 21st. Vote NDP.
Thank you, Cynthia. Ian Curry, the Green Party.
It's important for me to note that the Green Party has a full platform and a fully costed platform. Important because I'm going to talk to you again about climate change. And I'm going to talk to you about why this is a consequential election. And it's because, not because it would be convenient for us to take immediate action, but because nature has imposed a deadline. The science tells us that. And we can't fight against the science. So we can do something consequential in this riding this time. Or we can do exactly the same thing and think about only which leader of the major party is less offensive to you. Or who is going to be a less bad government for this country, or be less destructive to the environment. You can do something consequential if you vote Green.
Finally, Ken Fitness of the People's Party of Canada.
All right, I get the last word. you're tired of getting the same old when it comes to government, quit voting in the same old when it comes to elections. The Liberals and Conservatives are really nothing more than two sides of the same coin. We've seen that for years. The other parties here are stuck on the Disney Channel. Ask yourself which party has a realistic and viable plan for change. Ask yourself if you're tired of political correctness and the vacuous virtue signaling that just goes on and on. Ask yourself if it's time for a reality check on unfair, redundant government policy programs and ever-overreaching regulations. Ask yourself if you're disillusioned with politics as usual, and if you are, come with me and vote PPC.
That brings us to the conclusion of tonight's event. I want to thank all of the candidates tonight. It takes a lot to put your name forward and to have a desire to serve. Thank you, not just for putting your names forward, but for all being here tonight. And thanks to all of you who came out and asked questions. Big thanks to everybody listening at home and online as well.